After I was transported to the ancient world, I made it a habit to buy a few little girls from human traffickers every once in a while. The younger they were, the better. Innocent and clueless was ideal. Everyone secretly cursed me, calling me a disgusting pervert obsessed with little girls, but none of them knew the truth. I wasn't doing this because of some twisted desire. I was doing it to earn subsidies. When I arrived in this world, I awakened a system that gave me 10 yuan every single day. Rice only cost 2 yuan per jin, so my daily subsidy could be exchanged for 5 jin of rice. In this era, those 5 jin could be sold for 50 copper coins, and that was how I managed to survive. I spent 200 copper coins to rent a house that was over 100 square meters for an entire month. And I also bought 3 skinny little girls who looked as frail as bean sprouts. My real goal was to increase my future subsidy because, at the moment, my team only consisted of me. The system rewarded 10 yuan per day for every approved member, but the 3 girls I had bought were still in their probation period. All I could do was hope they would pass the evaluation soon. Once they did, my daily subsidy would jump to 40 yuan and life would become much easier. When I walked into the dining room, 11-year-old Jingxiu and 10-year-old Jinwen were placing bowls on the table while 13-year-old Jinyi finished preparing breakfast. I had bought all 3 of them from traffickers in town just a few days ago. Their old names didn't sound pleasant to me, so I gave them new ones that matched my surname: Zhao Jinyi, Zhao Jinxiu, and Zhao Jinwen. 4 bowls sat on the table. Mine was a large bowl filled with thick porridge, and there was even an egg inside. The other 3 bowls contained watery porridge that was so thin you could almost see the bottom. And the only side dish was a tiny bowl of pickled vegetables. I sighed helplessly and said, "Jinyi, how many times have I told you not to treat us differently like this? I'm not so poor that I can't afford a few extra bowls of porridge." She smiled gently and replied, "Master, the porridge we drink is already better than anything we've ever had." I simply shook my head and said no more because she wasn't wrong. The 3 girls had lived miserable lives before meeting me. To them, even a bowl of plain rice porridge felt like a blessing. At first, they refused to sit at the same table as me, and they wouldn't even cook porridge for themselves. Things were much better now, but I knew some changes couldn't be forced. Time was the only thing that could slowly erase the fear in their hearts. If I tried to change everything too quickly, it would only frighten them even more. I looked at them and said, "After breakfast, I'm going for a walk around town. You 3 stay home." Once the meal was over, I returned to my room and brought out the rice sack. Yesterday's subsidy and today's subsidy added up to 20 yuan, just enough to exchange for 10 jin of rice. I called out, "Jinyi, there are 10 jin of rice inside. Later, take it to Boss Joe's grain shop, sell it, then buy some vegetables with the money. Save whatever is left. By the way, how much have we saved so far?" She answered proudly, 346 copper coins. Every day, Jinyi counted the money over and over again with her 2 younger sisters. She had never been trusted with so much money in her life and was terrified of making even a 1-coin mistake. I nodded and said, "Bring me 300 copper coins." She returned with a small wooden box, took out 2 tiny pieces of silver shaped like polished fingernails, each worth 1 qian, or 100 copper coins, and then carefully counted another 100 copper coins before handing everything to me. I accepted the money and headed into town. The streets weren't very long, and within a few minutes I had already walked through most of them before stepping into the human broker's shop. Before I could even open my mouth, shopkeeper Chen, a man with 2 ridiculous mustache strips hanging beside his lips, hurried over with an extremely sleazy grin. "Master Zhao, you've come at the perfect time. We just received some excellent merchandise today. She's definitely your type." The moment I saw that disgusting smile on his wrinkled old face, I wanted nothing more than to punch him. Damn it, my terrible reputation had been ruined because of this old bastard. He was the one spreading rumors all over town that some rich outsider named Zhao had a sick obsession with little girls, had already taken home 3 of them, and kept visiting the broker's shop every few days looking for more. I suppressed my irritation and said coldly, "Bring her out. Let me see." I had no interest in wasting another word on this piece of trash. Chen ordered one of the teenage assistants to fetch someone while he stayed behind, even pouring me a pot of tea. Before long, an elderly woman walked in with an extremely small little girl beside her. At that exact moment, a notification from my system arrived, and I couldn't stop a huge smile from spreading across my face. Jinyi had finally passed her probation period. From now on, my daily subsidy would increase by another 10 yuan. Even better, Jingxiu and Jinwen had been purchased on the same day, meaning they would likely pass their evaluations this afternoon as well. My income was about to jump from 10 yuan a day all the way to 40. How could I not be thrilled? I couldn't hide my excitement at all. Unfortunately, shopkeeper Chen completely misunderstood my reaction. Seeing me smile so broadly, his own grin became even more vulgar. In his mind, he thought the girl was incredibly young, only 8 years old, and he had originally worried the deal might fail, but now he was convinced it would succeed. He even wondered if he could raise the price. That outsider, Master Zhao, what a beast, he secretly thought with satisfaction. The 8-year-old girl already understood far more than adults expected. The moment she saw me laughing, she instinctively became terrified. Her eyes were already swollen from crying, but they quickly turned even redder as fresh tears poured out. She hid behind her mother, wrapped both arms tightly around her waist, and cried desperately, "Mom, please don't sell Dea, okay? I'll be good. I'll listen to everything you say. I'll take good care of my little brother. I'll even go outside to earn money and buy medicine for Dad. Please, don't sell me." Her mother's heart was breaking as tears streamed down her face. If there had been any other way to survive, who would willingly sell their own daughter? But the man of the family had collapsed from illness. If he couldn't be cured, how would a widow and her children possibly survive? Shopkeeper Chen smiled obsequiously and asked, "Master Zhao, what do you think of this little girl?" I nodded slightly and replied, "She's quite good. If she's willing to come with me, I'll buy her." Chen immediately waved his hand and said, "No rush, no rush. Master Zhao, look how delicate and lovely this girl is. How about adding a little more to the price?" I turned my head sharply and glared at him. "Lovely? Look at how skinny she's become, and you still have the nerve to call her lovely? Where exactly did you get the confidence to say that? Did my brother Zhang Baron give it to you, or was it Liang Jingru?" Then I stood up and said, "If you have anyone else suitable, contact me later." My income had just increased dramatically, so I was already in a good mood, but watching this mother and daughter cry so miserably made it impossible for me to bear tearing their family apart. Shopkeeper Chen froze. Was I really leaving, or was I just pretending to force the price down? If Master Zhao truly didn't want the girl anymore, Chen himself would lose dozens of copper coins. He hurried after me and shouted, "Master Zhao, don't leave. Let's talk a little more. We can negotiate the price." Just as I was about to walk out, the woman suddenly grabbed the leg of my pants. Her hands were so dry and fragile that I was honestly afraid they might break if I pulled away too hard. Looking up at me with exhausted eyes, she whispered, "Master, I'll sell her." Those 3 words seemed to drain every last bit of strength from her body. The moment she finished speaking, she collapsed onto the ground. I looked at her with complicated emotions before quietly saying, "All right, I'll buy her." If it had only been about saving herself, I knew she would never have done this, even if it meant dying. But if she refused to sell her daughter, the ones who might die wouldn't be just her. It could be the entire family. I slowly turned around, walked back to the table, and threw 2 pieces of silver onto it with a heavy slap. This time, shopkeeper Chen didn't dare bargain with me anymore. He hurriedly took out the ownership contract. Making a clean profit of 60 copper coins felt great, but watching the mother and daughter say their final goodbye completely ruined my mood. The mother kept reminding her daughter to behave and listen carefully, and every word made my chest feel heavier. I finally said, "I still have things to do. It's time for us to leave." The woman held the money tightly in her left hand while gripping her daughter's hand with her right. After letting out a heartbreaking cry, she slowly released her daughter's hand. I looked at her and said, "I'll tell you where I live. If you ever want to visit your daughter, you're welcome anytime. I won't stop you." She lowered her head respectfully and replied, "Master, I know the rules. I won't come to your home and offend you. You're a good man. I only hope you'll treat my daughter well. In my next life, I'll repay your kindness even if I have to serve you like an ox or a horse." I nodded gently and answered, "Don't worry, she'll definitely live a better life with me than she did here. As for your name, Li Daya doesn't sound very nice. From today onward, you'll be called Zhao Jingyuan. Come on, follow me home." I walked in front while Zhao Jingyuan quietly followed behind me, tears streaming down her face. She was crying because she had been separated from her family forever, and because she had no idea what kind of future awaited her. When we arrived home, I knocked on the door and called out, "Jinyi, open the door, I'm back." The gate opened and Jinyi poked her head out. Her clothes and face were covered in dirt, but the moment she saw me, a bright smile bloomed across her face. "Master, you're back." I frowned slightly and asked, "Why are all of you covered in dirt? Didn't I tell you not to do this? We won't be living here for very long anyway." She smiled sheepishly and replied, "We were bored, so we thought we'd turn over the soil. Maybe we'll even manage to grow something before we leave." I sighed helplessly. They were such wonderful girls. It was just a shame fate had never treated them kindly. Jinyi looked curiously at the little girl behind me and asked, "Master, who is she?" I smiled and said, "I just brought her home today. From now on, her name is Zhao Jingyuan. She's your little sister now, so take good care of her. Jinyi, make her something to eat. Jingxiu, Jinwen, stop digging the ground and boil some water. Jingyuan needs a bath. She still has quite a strong smell." "Yes, master," all 3 girls answered cheerfully. Zhao Jingyuan had been wiping away tears the entire journey, but seeing 3 girls who were only a little older than herself immediately eased some of the fear in her heart. They all looked relaxed and happy, making her feel that maybe her future life wouldn't be as terrible as she had imagined. I suddenly remembered something and asked, "Which of you knows how to sew with a needle and thread?" Jinyi answered immediately, "Master, all of us do." In this era, sewing and cooking were basic skills every girl had to learn. They might not be experts, but they couldn't afford not to know. Even Zhao Jingyuan quietly raised her hand and whispered, I can sew too." She wanted to prove that she had value, because before they separated, Her mother had repeatedly told her, "You must show your worth. Work hard, be obedient, eat less." I smiled and interrupted gently. "All right, go do what you need to do. I'm heading out again." The moment I left, the girls immediately became much livelier. Jinyi said, "You two heat the water and help Jingyuan bathe. I'll prepare something for her to eat." Jingxiu and Jinwen nodded happily. "Don't worry, big sister. We'll take good care of our little sister." Before Zhao Jingyuan even realized what was happening, the two girls led her inside while chatting non-stop. They kept telling her how kind everyone was here, how good Master treated them, and that she didn't need to be afraid anymore. They helped her bathe, changed her into a set of old but spotlessly clean clothes that didn't smell bad at all, and finally brought her to the table. Waiting there was a steaming bowl of thick rice porridge along with a small dish of pickled vegetables. Jingxiu smiled and urged, "What are you staring at? Hurry up and eat. Aren't you hungry?" Zhao Jingyuan swallowed hard before saying timidly, "Big sisters, you should eat it. I'm not hungry." After hesitating for a moment, she added, "Actually, well, a small bowl of wild vegetable porridge is enough for me. I don't need rice porridge." Jinyi smiled warmly and said, "Just eat. We already had breakfast this morning, and we also ate porridge." Seeing how nervous Zhao Jingyuan still looked, she continued gently, "We still have work to finish, so we'll leave first. Eat the porridge before it gets cold." Zhao Jingyuan hurriedly stood up and said, "I'll come help you work." Jinyi shook her head with a smile. "You can work after you finish eating. We'll go ahead." After the three girls left, Zhao Jingyuan carefully picked up the bowl and gently smelled the porridge. "It smells so good. When was the last time I ate rice porridge? Maybe during last year's New Year. And even then it wasn't this thick. Can I really eat rice porridge every day here? If that's true, I'll work as hard as I can. I'll wake up before sunrise and won't sleep until after dark." Without realizing it, she finished the entire bowl. It was so clean that it looked as though it had been washed, though the truth was she had licked every last grain from it. Her little belly was slightly round now. Her stomach was full, but her mouth still wasn't satisfied. She honestly felt that even if another 2 bowls appeared, she'd still be able to finish them. Even if she burst from overeating, she'd drink every last drop first because it was simply too delicious. Just then, Jingxiu suddenly shouted, "Big sister! Master's back! I'll open the door." The door swung open as I walked inside carrying a cloth bundle. Zhao Jingyuan immediately stood up. Seeing the bowl she had licked spotless, she became so embarrassed that her face turned bright red. Fortunately, she had just finished bathing, otherwise no one would have noticed her blushing through all the dirt. I smiled and looked at everyone. "See, this is much better. Being clean feels comfortable, and everyone likes looking at clean faces. Come here, all of you. I'm in a good mood today, so I bought you some gifts." I placed the bundle on the table and unfolded it, revealing a roll of coarse cloth along with needles and thread. "Jinyi, this cloth cost 380 copper coins. See if it's enough to make each of you a new set of clothes. Things are still a little tight right now. Once I have more money, I'll buy colorful cloth for all of you." Jinyi froze. She had never imagined I would actually buy cloth for them. Joy and sadness filled her heart at the same time. When she heard me mention buying even better cloth later, she quickly wiped away the tears gathering in the corners of her eyes and said, "Master, there's no need to buy more. This is already enough, really." She had never dared dream of owning new clothes. Even children from ordinary farming families often went years without a new outfit. Most girls only wore their first new clothes when they got married, and some never even received that much. I laughed helplessly. "It's only a little cloth. There's no need to cry. Jinyi, tell me honestly, is it enough?" She calculated silently before replying, "It should be enough for 4 outfits. Probably." I raised an eyebrow. "Probably means it isn't enough. Fine. Tomorrow I'll buy another 100 copper coins worth. I don't want you squeezing every inch of cloth only to end up with clothes that don't fit. Or maybe each of you can make 1 sleeve instead of 2 and walk around with 1 arm exposed like monks." The girls burst into laughter. Jinwen immediately imagined the scene and laughed so hard she could barely breathe before saying, "Even if we did that, we'd be nuns, not monks." I laughed too. "Oh, so that's your ambition? Maybe I should just shave all your heads." "No!" All 4 girls cried at once, instantly covering their hair as though I were actually about to shave them bald. Their terrified expressions made me laugh even harder. Then I said, "Now you won't have time to complain about being bored. Forget digging the yard. We'll be moving soon anyway." The girls immediately gathered around the cloth, chatting excitedly about how they would make their new clothes while I quietly returned to my room. Now that Jinyi, Jingxiu, and Jinwen had all passed the system's probation period, once Jingyuan passed hers in a few days, my daily subsidy would reach 50 yuan, equivalent to 500 copper coins. 2 days of subsidies would already equal 1 tael of silver. Right now, our daily expenses were only 30 or 40 copper coins, so our spending wasn't high at all. That meant it was finally time to put my real plan into motion. I needed to find a suitable place, buy several mu of land, build a house, hire workers to clear the wilderness, and slowly develop my own village. I silently called out, "System, help me find a geomantically blessed location nearby. Search within a 100-li radius for the best place to establish a village." The system replied, "Search cost 100 win. Confirm?" I smiled bitterly and shook my head. "Forget it. I don't have that much money yet. I'll wait a few more days." By the afternoon, Jinyi finished preparing dinner and knocked on my door to call me out. On the table sat a wooden basin filled with more than a dozen coarse grain pancakes, a plate of stir-fried vegetables, a large bowl of soup, and a small dish of pickled vegetables. Zhao Jingyuan stared in disbelief. The pancakes didn't even have wild vegetables mixed into them. The stir-fried vegetables and soup actually contained noticeable grains. Even wealthy landlords wouldn't eat like this every day. This meal had to cost more than 10 copper coins. But what shocked her even more was that the moment I sat down, I frowned unhappily and asked, "Jinyi, are we out of rice? Why has today's standard dropped? And why aren't there any meat shreds in the vegetables?" Zhao Jingyuan became so frightened that she barely dared breathe. Jinyi also stood up nervously and explained, "Master, today you bought Jingyuan and also spent so much on cloth, so I—" She lowered her head and whispered, "I'm sorry, Master. We still have eggs at home. I'll fry 2 for you right away." Seeing all 4 girls wearing frightened expressions, I immediately blamed myself for speaking too harshly. My voice softened as I said, "Fry a few more. Everyone will eat. Haven't I told you before? I have money. You don't need to worry so much. You're becoming quite the little housekeeper." A short while later, Jinyi returned with several fried eggs. She placed 2 into my bowl and gave 1 to everyone else, but none for herself. I sighed inwardly. She was punishing herself because she thought she had disappointed me. Without saying another word, I picked 1 egg from my bowl and placed it into hers. "Don't argue. Eat." Jinyi obediently sat down, lowering her head so no one would notice her reddened eyes. 1 egg cost around 3 copper coins. 5 eggs together were worth 15 copper coins. Zhao Jingyuan could hardly believe that someone like her deserved a meal like this. On her very first day in Master's house, everything that had happened felt like an impossible dream. After dinner, she followed her 3 older sisters back to the west room, where they continued sewing their new clothes together as night gradually fell. We had an oil lamp at home, but we never lit it. Instead, we went to bed early. The large shared sleeping platform was more than big enough for the 4 little girls, and although the quilts were old, they were thick and warm. Wrapped beneath them, Zhao Jingyuan gradually felt the fear and anxiety inside her melt away, replaced by a sense of safety she had never known before. If this is a dream, I hope I never wake up. Before dawn the next morning, a rooster from one of the neighboring houses started crowing. Jingyuan jolted awake and sat upright immediately. Back at home, the moment she heard a rooster crow, she had to get up at once to help her mother cook, look after her younger brothers and sisters, wash clothes after breakfast, and sometimes even go dig for wild vegetables. There was always endless work waiting for her. But now she sat there in confusion before remembering that she had already been sold to me. The sadness returned for a moment, but she quickly pushed it aside. She noticed Jinyi quietly getting dressed while the other 2 girls were still asleep, so she whispered, "Sister Jinyi, what work should I do after I get up?" Jinyi smiled and replied softly, "We don't really have much work. Master wakes up late, so breakfast is always made later. I'm just used to waking up early and can't sleep anymore. You should lie down and rest a little longer. Just get up later with Jingxiu and Jinwen." Jingyuan obediently lay back down, but after so many years of hardship, she no longer knew what it felt like to sleep in. Once Jinyi left the room, she quietly got dressed as well and stepped into the courtyard. Jingxiu was carrying a small bucket toward the gate when she saw her and smiled. "Can't sleep either? Looks like we're not as lucky as Jinwen and me." The second day after we arrived, those 2 heard they didn't have to wake up early and immediately fell asleep again. "I checked around just now, and the water jar is almost empty. Since you're already awake, come fetch water with me." Having work to do gave Jingyuan a sense of security, so she hurried inside to grab a wooden bucket. Jingxiu laughed and said, "Take the smallest one. There's barely any work to do. Once we finish this, we'll have nothing left except being lazy." Jingyuan knew Jingxiu was trying to make her feel comfortable, so she smiled and picked up the smaller bucket. When they reached the well, several people were already waiting in line. The 2 girls each carried back only half a bucket at a time, making several easy trips until the water jar was finally full. Jinyi then asked, "Are you hungry? If you are, I'll start cooking now." Jingyuan hesitated and asked, "But Master isn't awake yet, is he?" Jinyi smiled. "It's all right. Master is a really kind person. He doesn't mind. In fact, I think he's happiest when he sees us eating well and dressing warmly. He has never treated us like servants. He truly treats us like little sisters." After a brief pause, she added seriously, "But no matter how kind Master is, we must remember our place." I knew she was reminding Jingyuan not to forget the difference between us just because I treated them well. After I finally got up, the 5 of us ate breakfast together. Then I slung a sack containing 20 jin of rice over my shoulder and headed out alone. My explanation to outsiders was always that my family was in the grain business and had stored extra rice for daily needs. I had already reached an agreement with the owner of a grain shop in town. Market price was 22 copper coins per jin, but I sold it to him for 20. He saved the trouble of purchasing elsewhere and still earned 2 copper coins profit per jin. We had been working together for over half a month, and the arrangement had become very stable. After returning home, I gathered the 4 girls who were busy sewing clothes and called out cheerfully, "Salary day! Everyone, come here!" As I spoke, I took 4 fist-sized cloth pouches from my robe and placed them on the table. Jinyi blinked in confusion and asked on everyone's behalf, "Master, what is a salary?" I smiled. "Monthly pay." She looked even more puzzled. "Master, what's monthly pay?" I couldn't help laughing. These poor girls had seen so little of the world. "Don't you know that maids in wealthy families receive monthly wages?" Jinxiu asked in surprise. "Even after signing a contract to sell themselves, they still get paid?" "Of course, that's how rich households do things. You aren't maids, so let's call it pocket money instead. It's basically the same thing. For now, each of you will receive 100 copper coins every month. It'll increase in the future." Seeing that none of them moved, I waved my hand. "What are you waiting for? Come and take your share." The 4 girls only looked at each other. Not one of them reached for the money because they had never imagined they would ever own anything that truly belonged to them. I sighed helplessly. "I'm giving you money and you won't even take it? Are you all silly?" In the end, I personally placed 1 pouch into each girl's hands. Jinyi held hers as though it were burning hot, her eyes turning red as she asked nervously, "Master, are you giving us money because you want to send us away?" I immediately understood what they were afraid of. To reassure them, I smiled and said, "What nonsense are you thinking? You've all been sold to me, so you'll be staying with me for the rest of your lives. Even after you die someday, you're not allowed to be buried too far away from me." The girls instantly burst into laughter through their tears. Jinwen wiped her eyes and timidly asked, "Master, is this money really ours? Can we spend it however we want?" I nodded. "That's right, it's your own money. Buy whatever you like. Even if you throw it into a well, I won't stop you." Jinwen stuck out her tongue and giggled. "I would never throw money into a well." I laughed, reached over, and gently rubbed her head. "You're definitely the cleverest one here." Then I stretched lazily and said, "All right, salaries have been paid. I'm going to take a nap. You girls can do whatever you want." I returned to my room while the 4 girls excitedly chatted nonstop. For the first time in their lives, they each owned 100 copper coins of their very own. They were so thrilled they didn't even know what to do with themselves. After the excitement slowly faded, Jingyuan frowned slightly and whispered, "My father is still sick. I don't know how he's doing. I want to take this money home so he can buy medicine. Do you think Master will be upset?" Jinyi shook her head gently. "He won't. Master already said it's our monthly pay. We decide how to use it." Jingyuan nodded. "Then, I want to go home and give the money to my mother." Jinxiu quietly added, "I want to visit my family too." As the oldest sister, Jinyi understood everyone's feelings. She nodded and said, "Anyone who wants to go home may go, but don't stay too long. Come back as soon as possible. And don't even think about running away, or I'll report you to the authorities myself." Jinwen stuck out her tongue again and laughed. "Only an idiot would run away. Back home, we couldn't eat well, couldn't sleep well, and had to work from before sunrise until after dark. I'd have to be crazy to leave." Jinyi smiled. "Then go on." She turned toward Jingyuan and added, "Your father is sick. We don't know how much medicine will cost. Take my 100 copper coins too." Jingyuan hurriedly shook her head. "No, big sister, I can't. I won't be able to repay you." Jinyi smiled warmly. "Didn't Master say this is monthly pay? We'll receive it every month. Just pay me back next month." Jingyuan's eyes became moist. "But aren't you going home?" Before Jinyi could answer, Jingshu covered Jingyuan's mouth playfully and dragged her toward the door while Jinwen hurried after them. Just then, Jinyi suddenly remembered something and chased after her younger sisters. Stopping them before they left, she said seriously, "You may give your families the money, but don't tell anyone we'll receive this every month. Just say Master had something happy happen and rewarded us." Her expression became stern. "You're not children anymore. Don't cause trouble for Master." The girls immediately understood. If their families learned the money came every month, they might start demanding it regularly or even come directly to my house. After her younger sisters left, Jinyi quietly returned to the room and sat on the bed. Before she realized it, tears began rolling down her cheeks, falling faster and faster. I slowly pushed open the door and walked inside. She hurriedly wiped her tears and tried to force a smile, but she simply couldn't. Looking at the poor girl, I sat beside her and gently wrapped an arm around her thin shoulders. "Jinyi, when I gave you the name Zhao Jinyi, I had already decided that from then on I'd treat you like my own little sister. You're not alone anymore. You have an older brother now. Your brother will protect you, care for you, prepare a proper dowry for your wedding, and make sure your husband's family never dares look down on you." As long as I'm alive, I'll shield you from every storm. No one will ever bully you again, not even your own father." Jinyi's vision blurred completely. She threw herself into my arms and cried her heart out. Meanwhile, on the edge of Qingyu town, crowded alleys stretched between crumbling houses. Muddy puddles and filth covered the narrow roads. This was where poor farming families struggled to survive. Although Jingyuan had only been away for a single day, returning to this place already made her feel completely out of place. She reached her family's tiny courtyard and pushed open the broken front gate that barely blocked anyone's view. The feeling of poverty and decay hit her immediately. Her 5-year-old younger brother, who was stacking firewood in the yard, looked up and shouted excitedly, "Big sister! Big sister!" He ran over and hugged her tightly around the waist. Jingyuan smiled happily despite feeling a little helpless because her clean clothes had immediately become dirty again. She imagined Jinyi scolding her after she returned home, but seeing her little brother again still filled her heart with joy. Just then, her 3-year-old younger brother rushed over as well, wrapping his dirty little hands around her. Before Jingyuan could respond, her mother hurried out after hearing the commotion. The moment she saw her daughter, joy flashed across her face, but it instantly turned into panic. She grabbed Jingyuan's arm and cried, "Daya! Why did you come back? Have you lost your mind? How could you sneak back?" She shoved her 2 sons aside without hesitation, ignoring their cries as they fell to the ground. Her only concern was dragging Jingyuan back before anyone discovered she had run away. Their family was already suffering enough. If I reported her to the authorities for escaping, the consequences would be unimaginable. Jingyuan quickly explained, "Mother, I didn't run away. I asked for permission before coming back." Her mother frowned. "Permission? You only went there yesterday. And today they already gave you leave. Do you think I'm a fool?" Jingyuan shook her head firmly. "Believe me or not, I really did get permission. I came back because I have something important to do. I'll see father, then I'll head back immediately." Her mother stared at her in disbelief. "Is that really true?" Just then, a weak voice drifted from inside the house. Is that Daya? Has Daya come back?" Jingyuan's eyes instantly filled with tears. "Father!" She rushed into the room. A thin, frail, middle-aged man struggled to sit up on the bed. The moment he saw her, tears streamed down his face as he said painfully, "Daya, father is sorry. I failed you." Jingyuan's own tears fell as she gently helped him lie back down. "Father, don't say that. I'm doing well now. The house doesn't leak when it rains. I have a warm quilt at night, and I eat much better than I ever did at home. Yesterday, Master had something to celebrate, so today he rewarded us. I brought the money back. Please use it to recover." Her father froze. Endless sorrow filled his eyes before he suddenly slammed his fist against the bed. "A celebration? That beast! That beast!" Jingyuan stared at him in confusion. Why is father reacting like this? Shouldn't this be good news? Her mother, who had followed them inside, also froze. Pain flashed across her face. She wanted nothing more than to hug her daughter and cry, but after noticing Jingyuan walked normally without any signs of injury, she became uncertain. Quietly pulling her daughter behind a half-height wall, she looked around cautiously before whispering, "Child, take off your pants." My mother didn't explain the exact situation to us, but after quietly whispering something into father's ear, the tension on both of their faces finally disappeared, as if a massive weight had been lifted from their shoulders. Only then did they remember what I had said about the money, and hurriedly ask about it. Jingyuan took out the 2 small money pouches and handed them to her mother. "There's 200 copper coins here. Use them to buy medicine for father. 100 is mine, and the other 100 belongs to one of my older sisters. She doesn't seem to have any family, so she lent it to us. When I receive another reward later, I'll pay her back." Her parents' eyes instantly turned red. "Good people? They're all good people," her mother murmured. "Our daughter is truly blessed to have ended up in such a kind family. Your father and I will even set up a longevity tablet to pray for Master Zhao's long life." Jingyuan smiled softly before saying, "Mother, I've already been here for a while. I should head back now. If Master rewards me again in the future, I'll bring more money home." Her mother opened her mouth as though she wanted to refuse, but she couldn't bring herself to say it. Instead, she simply reminded her, "When you go back, work hard and serve Master Zhao well. You must repay his great kindness." Jingyuan nodded awkwardly. She couldn't exactly tell them that there wasn't much work to do and that I practically let them relax all day. As she stepped out through the broken front gate, she couldn't help looking back at her shabby home one last time. It was still poor and worn down, but for the first time, she felt hope for the future. Master said we'd receive rewards every month. 100 copper coins every month means 1 tael and 2 kyan of silver every year. That's already enough to cover nearly half of my family's yearly expenses. I'm only 8 years old, yet I can already help support my family. The pride filling her little heart made every step she took feel lighter. The only thing bothering her was how dirty her clothes had become. She was worried Jinyi would scold her after she returned, and she silently decided that next time she came home, she'd teach her younger brothers to keep themselves clean because Master cared a lot about cleanliness. As expected, all three girls who had gone home eventually returned. Just like Jinwen had joked, only a complete fool would run away. They ate well every day, had comfortable places to sleep, barely had any work to do. I treated them kindly, and now they even received monthly pocket money. Even the daughters of wealthy landlords probably didn't live much better than they did. About a dozen kilometers from Qingyu town lay a beautiful valley surrounded by green mountains and clear water. I spent 100 yuan to let the system select the perfect geomantic location, then another 100 yuan to have it generate a complete village layout. After making a few changes according to my own ideas, I hired boss Wang from town to find workers and build the house. Just over 10 days later, the courtyard was finished. It wasn't some luxurious mansion by any means. Forget carved jade or elegant architecture. Even calling it a house of blue bricks and white tiles would have been an exaggeration. The surrounding walls were only 2 meters high and made entirely of packed earth. The wooden beams cut from the nearby mountains were the most valuable materials used in the entire construction. Still, no matter how simple it looked, it was finally a place that could shelter us from the wind and rain. When I brought the 4 girls there for the first time, none of them could hide the excitement on their faces. Jinyi looked around in disbelief before asking, "Master, is this really going to be our home from now on?" I smiled and nodded. "That's right, it's still very simple. Once we earn more money, we'll tear it down and build something much better. Come on, let's head to the backyard. Everyone choose your own rooms first. Then Boss Wang can bring in the furniture, and we'll be able to move in." Every long journey begins with a single step. Just then, the system's notification echoed inside my mind. Congratulations, fixed base, established. Reward, team expansion bonus, and 1 lottery draw. I couldn't help laughing. Another lottery chance. This time, I could finally use it. According to the system's description, its lottery function was incredibly rare and powerful. I could even narrow the prize pool according to my own requirements. Ever since activating the system, I had been saving my first lottery draw for a truly important moment. But right now, what I needed most was money. Even this shabby little courtyard had already consumed 20 days worth of subsidies. In the future, I'd need to hire workers to clear farmland, attract more people, and continue developing the village. Everything required money. I quietly issued my command. "System, start the lottery. Target, something simple to use that can make money." A moment later, the system responded. "Congratulations. You have obtained an integrated distillation apparatus. Please choose a placement location." I scratched my head in disappointment. "Forget it for now. I'll decide where to place it later." Honestly, I had expected some incredible production technology, maybe something revolutionary like large-scale salt extraction or another powerful industrial method. At the very least, I had hoped for knowledge that could manufacture some rare products. Instead, I got a distillation machine. It wasn't useless, but it definitely wasn't what I had imagined. I wandered into the backyard where the 4 girls were happily discussing which rooms they wanted. There were more than enough rooms now, so each of them could have one if they wished. Yet after talking it over, they still decided to share. Jinyi chose to stay with Jingyuan, while the 2 slightly lazier girls, Jingxiu and Jinwen, shared another room together. The new Zhao residence was so new that it barely looked finished. There were rooms, but no windows or doors yet, and there certainly wasn't any furniture. Fortunately, now that the rooms had been selected, Boss Wang could prioritize finishing those first while slowly completing the rest of the house later. After discussing everything with Boss Wang, I took the 4 girls back to Qingyu town in a rented horse carriage. The house was finished, but we still needed beds, furniture, and all the daily necessities before anyone could actually live there. That project took both time and money. Several more days passed before the backyard rooms finally had proper doors, windows, and basic furnishings. One afternoon, a horse carriage slowly rolled to a stop outside Zhao residence. The 4 girls could barely contain their excitement as they jumped down one after another, while I climbed down much more leisurely behind them. Jinyi looked at the courtyard with sparkling eyes and asked once again, "Master, is this really our home now?" I smiled proudly. "That's right. From today onward, this is our home. The Zhao family's home." The girls' faces flushed bright red with excitement. Before I could say anything else, Jingxiu and Jinwen had already rushed through the front gate and sprinted toward the backyard. Behind our carriage, another wagon without a canopy had arrived carrying stacks of wooden bed frames. Besides the driver, 4 thin laborers followed behind it. One of them bowed respectfully and asked, "Master Zhao, where should we install these beds?" I looked toward Jinyi and said, "Jinyi, go arrange it. Pick 5 rooms in the front courtyard and another 5 in the middle courtyard. Have all 10 beds installed there first." In my eyes, Jinyi was still just a little girl. But in this era, girls her age were already considered almost adults. It was completely normal for girls to marry and have children by the age of 14 or 15. After putting on her new clothes, even though they were only simple coarse cloth, they were clean, brand new, and free of patches, something many people could never afford. Dressed like that, she looked every bit like a maid from a wealthy household. The kind of girl people admired whenever she walked through town. The laborers delivering the beds wore dirty, worn-out clothes, and the man leading them didn't even dare look directly at her. He lowered his head respectfully and asked, "Miss Jinyi, we'll follow your instructions. Where should we move these?" Hearing someone call her Miss Jinyi made her heart secretly leap with joy, but she kept a calm expression. She couldn't embarrass me. The four girls threw themselves into cleaning our new home with incredible enthusiasm. They didn't want to dirty or damage their new clothes, so they changed back into their old ones and worked inside and outside the house without stopping. They stayed so busy that by the time the sky was nearly dark, Jinyi suddenly realized they hadn't even prepared dinner yet. "Oh no, Master must be hungry," she exclaimed, before quickly calling her younger sisters to wash up, change back into their good clothes, and start cooking. Wanting to celebrate our new home, the usually frugal Jinyi was unusually generous. She prepared 4 dishes, 1 soup, and a pot of steaming white rice. I couldn't stop praising how delicious everything tasted. After we finished eating, I smiled and said, "Don't leave yet. Let's have a meeting, our very first family meeting." Jinyi blinked in confusion and asked, "Master, what's a family meeting?" Without saying another word, I reached into my system storage as if performing magic and took out 5 small notebooks along with 5 fountain pens. On the lower right corner of the first notebook, I carefully wrote 3 characters, Zhao Jinyi. Then I handed it to her and said, "Jinyi, this notebook and pen are yours. From now on, carry them with you wherever you go." She stared at them in complete disbelief before carefully accepting them with both hands, as though she were afraid they might break if she held them too tightly. Looking at the writing, she asked softly, "Master, are these my name?" Jinyi couldn't read. She only recognized a few simple numbers and common characters like 1, 2, 3, bean, and stone. Even then she could recognize them, but had no idea how to write them herself. Her eyes slowly became red again. In her heart she felt I treated them far better than they deserved. Sometimes she even believed she wasn't worthy of such kindness, and every time that thought appeared, she reminded herself that her entire life existed only to take care of me and repay my kindness. I then carefully wrote the names of Jingxiu, Jinwen, and Jingyuan on the other notebooks before handing each one over. Looking at all 4 of them, I said seriously, "In the future, I'm going to accomplish many things. I won't be able to handle everything alone, so all of you will have to help me." Jinyi immediately nodded. "Master, don't worry. I'll work hard. I'll take good care of you and this family." I smiled and shook my head. "That's not what I mean. I'm talking about business, real work, like what the shopkeepers in town do." Jinwen's eyes lit up with curiosity. "Shopkeepers? Master, can we become shopkeepers too?" I could already tell she was imagining herself dressed in a long robe and merchant's hat, sitting among a group of bearded businessmen while discussing important deals. I laughed and answered confidently, "Of course you can." Jingxiu blinked in surprise. "But aren't shopkeepers all men?" I waved my hand and said firmly, "Think bigger. Have some vision. Who says women are inferior to men?" Jingxiu quietly mumbled, "Everyone says that." I shot her a helpless look. "Must you always ruin the atmosphere?" The girls immediately burst into laughter. I smiled and continued, "All right, we'll talk about those things later. Right now, let's begin with the first lesson." From what I could tell, my current business was stable enough to earn around 500 copper coins a day. That meant it still took 2 full days to make 1 tael of silver, and even after an entire year, I'd only earn a little over 100 taels. I shook my head and sighed. That's far too little. The 4 girls stared at me in disbelief. In their eyes, earning more than 100 taels a year was already unimaginable. In fact, there probably weren't many people in the entire Qingyu town who could make that much money annually. I smiled and continued. "That's why I've brought something very special from my hometown. It'll become our next main business." All 4 girls leaned forward at once. "What is it, Master?" I grinned. "Wine. We're going to sell really good wine." They immediately started asking one question after another, chattering excitedly, but I simply waved my hand and laughed. "You'll have to wait a few more days. The equipment hasn't arrived yet." I clapped my hands together. "Next topic. We need to discuss how we're going to furnish the new house. We don't have enough money to buy everything at once, so we'll make a plan and purchase things little by little." Compared to the wine business, this topic excited the girls even more. They enthusiastically began discussing what furniture, tools, and household items we should buy first. Once they finally settled down, I continued. "Third topic. From now on, I'll spend 1 or 2 hours every day teaching all of you reading, writing, and mathematics. In the future, every one of you will become managers." The room instantly fell silent. The girls froze as though they had misheard me. After a long pause, Jinwen stammered, "Master, are you serious? You really want to teach us how to read?" In this world, education was something almost sacred. Raising a scholar cost an unbelievable amount of money, far beyond what ordinary farming families could ever dream of affording. Qingyu Town only had 1 small academy where an old scholar taught students. Tuition alone cost 5 taels of silver every year. Once you added food, clothing, paper, brushes, ink, and everything else, supporting one student easily cost 20 or 30 taels annually. For ordinary people, That was an astronomical amount of money. Many families couldn't even save that much over an entire lifetime. You could think of a scholar as a long-term investment requiring 20 or 30 taels every single year, with no guarantee of success. Whether you'd ever recover that investment was anyone's guess. If you actually managed to profit from it, your ancestors must have been blessing you from heaven. After listening to all their worries, I smiled reassuringly. I'm only teaching you enough reading, writing, and math to be useful. It's not like I'm preparing you for the imperial examinations. Then I raised another finger. One last topic. I'm planning to hire permanent workers. They'll mainly clear wasteland around here and help with work on the estate. We need to carefully discuss how many people to recruit and how much to pay them because we're still not exactly wealthy. Jinyi thought for a moment before asking, Master, how many mu of land are you planning to cultivate? I rubbed my chin. I'm not sure yet. Let's say we start by hiring around 20 people. How much would that cost per day? In reality, I didn't care whether they were men, women, old people, or children. What mattered to me was population. Every additional person meant another 10 yuan of daily subsidy from my system. Jinyi quickly calculated everything in her head before saying, an ordinary farming family has 5 or 6 members and usually owns 2 or 3 mu of land. After paying taxes and keeping half the harvest to eat, selling the rest only earns about 1 tael of silver a year. Most families finish the year with almost nothing left. If you open new farmland and charge less tax, Master, I think many people would come. I shook my head. I'm not planning to collect taxes, and I won't divide the land among them either. I want to grow certain special crops myself. I'll simply pay wages instead. So tell me, what would be a reasonable salary? Jinwen thought carefully before answering. If they have to buy all their own food, one family probably spends a little over 1 tael of silver each year. Living on coarse grain cakes and wild vegetables, they could survive. Jinxiu nodded in agreement. That's about right. Back when I lived at home, wild vegetables made up most of our meals. 1 tael of silver a year was usually enough. I silently calculated. An average family of 5 or 6 people spent roughly 125 copper coins each month just to survive. Double that and they'd no longer need to depend on wild vegetables. 250 copper coins sounded awkward, so I simply rounded it up. Alright, then let's make it 300 copper coins per family every month. We'll recruit a few families first and see how it goes. I couldn't help smiling inwardly. Hiring an entire family only cost me 30 yuan a month. Where could I possibly find cheaper labor than that? Jinxiu stared at me in shock. Master, you're really paying that much? I blinked. Is it really that much? She hesitated before asking timidly, Master, do you really mean anyone can come? Men, women, old people, children, all of them? That's right. Her eyes instantly lit up. Then, can I ask my parents to come too? Before I could answer, Jinyi immediately scolded her. Jinxiu! Startled, Jinxiu shrank back and lowered her head. I'm sorry, Master. I smiled and looked at Jinyi. Don't scare your little sister. I need workers anyway. It doesn't matter whose family they are. Jinxiu, if your parents are willing to come, bring them. The others can invite their families too. The moment I finished speaking, Jinxiu, Jinwen, and Jingyuan all burst into tears. They dropped to their knees with loud thuds and repeatedly kowtowed toward me. I had barely helped one girl up before another knelt down. Finally, I laughed helplessly. Enough! Everyone stand up. If you don't get up right now, then I won't let your families come anymore. They immediately scrambled to their feet. Once the girls had calmed down, Jinyi spoke firmly from her chair. Listen carefully. You all carry the Zhao surname now. This is your home, and Master is your family. If anyone breaks the rules I just heard, I'll send both her and her family away. Did you all understand? She wasn't trying to be cruel. She was simply establishing rules before their families arrived so that future problems wouldn't arise. The 3 girls nodded together. We understand, big sister. Jinyi finally smiled. Good. Then go meet your families. She led the 3 girls toward the front courtyard. Originally, I had planned to greet everyone myself and even invite them to share a meal, since they were all the girls' families. But Jinyi stubbornly stopped me. She insisted I shouldn't become too familiar with outsiders, and even threatened that if I ignored her advice, she'd run away from home and abandon me completely. Faced with such an unexpected threat from my own little sister, I had no choice but to surrender. The previous day, the 3 girls had returned home to tell their families about my offer. Today, all 3 households had arrived together. 14 people stood quietly in the front courtyard of Zhao residence. Jinxiu had originally been named Sun Chunhua. Her father was Sun Tieju, her mother was Madame Sun Shen, her older brother was Sun Daju, and her younger sisters were Xiahua and Chuhua. I couldn't help laughing inwardly. If another daughter had been born, they probably would have named her Donghua so the family would have flowers for all 4 seasons. Jinwen's original name had been Wang Xiaoni. Besides her parents, she had 3 younger brothers. Jingyuan, who had once been Li Daya, arrived with her parents and 2 younger brothers as well. They had already been waiting for quite some time, yet the legendary scoundrel, or rather the great benefactor they had heard so much about, still hadn't appeared. Everyone knew the circumstances, and being honest farming families, none of them dared wander around. They simply stood there quietly, waiting. At that moment, The gate separating the front and middle courtyards slowly opened. Jinyi confidently walked out in front with the other 3 girls following behind her. Dressed in matching new clothes of the same style and color, the 4 girls carried themselves with remarkable confidence. Seeing that all 3 families had patiently waited without causing trouble, Jinyi secretly approved of them. She stopped in front of everyone and spoke clearly. "Everyone, I'm Zhao Jinyi. On behalf of Master, I'd like to welcome you all." The adults hurriedly bowed. "Greetings, Miss Jinyi." Looking at her commanding presence, they couldn't help thinking she truly deserved to be the head maid of a wealthy household. The way she spoke and carried herself was completely different from ordinary girls. Their own daughters were probably just junior maids who barely dared speak in front of her. If only one day their own daughters could become someone like Jinyi. Jinyi continued calmly. "You're all family members of Jingxiu, Jinwen, and Jingyuan, so there's no need to be overly nervous. However, you must follow the rules of the residence. Master is not a harsh person. As long as you obey the rules, he will never treat you unfairly." Everyone nodded frantically. "We'll follow the rules. Absolutely." The refined way Jinyi spoke made her sound exceptionally dignified. In truth, she had spent half the previous night asking me how to phrase everything properly before secretly practicing over and over by herself. She straightened her expression and continued. "The residence doesn't have many rules. First, unless someone invites you, you are absolutely forbidden from entering the rear courtyard. Even if you have business there, you must report it from outside the gate. Anyone who breaks this rule shouldn't blame me for showing no mercy." Her face suddenly turned cold, frightening the 14 adults and children so badly that nobody even dared breathe loudly. After a moment, her expression softened again. "You'll all stay in the middle courtyard. Each family may choose 2 rooms for now. If you need more space later, tell me. Jingxiu, Jinwen, Jingyuan, take your families to settle in." "Yes, big sister," the 3 girls answered together. Jinyi then turned around and calmly walked back toward the rear courtyard. The moment she disappeared from everyone's sight, she immediately stuck out her tongue and patted her own cheeks. "I was so nervous I thought my heart was going to jump out," she whispered. I had secretly watched the entire scene from the backyard. As soon as she noticed me, I gave her a big thumbs up. "I saw everything. Your speech was excellent. Honestly, you handled it even better than I would have." "Jinyi, this family's future is going to depend on you." Her face instantly turned bright red. Lowering her head shyly, she mumbled, "Master, please don't tease me." Back in the front courtyard, only after Jinyi had completely disappeared did everyone finally relax. Some of the children tried to run around, but their parents quickly pulled them back. Jinyi might have left, but the other 3 girls dressed exactly like her were still standing there. They knew their own daughters were easy to talk to, but who knew whether the other 2 would be just as kind? They couldn't risk embarrassing their children. Each girl walked over to her own family. Jinwen's mother smiled and called softly, "Xiaoni, where are we staying?" The moment she heard her old name, Jinwen instinctively frowned. "Mother, please don't call me Xiaoni anymore. Call me Jinwen instead." Her mother instinctively replied, "What nonsense are you saying? I've called you Xiaoni your whole life." Before she could finish, her husband gently tugged at her sleeve. "Listen to our daughter. Jinwen is a beautiful name. Don't make her a laughingstock in front of the others." Madame Wang forced a smile, but sadness filled her eyes. She understood. The daughter named Wang Xiaoni had already been sold. Standing before her now was no longer the poor farmer's child she had raised, but Zhao Jinwen of the Zhao family. Even though Jinwen still remembered her old family and wanted to help them, they also had to respect the boundaries that now existed between them. Madame Wang could only force a bitter smile. A faint, almost pleading smile appeared on her mother's face as she said, "Then we'll have to trouble you, Jinwen. Please help us settle in." The moment I heard the hesitation and distance in her voice, Jinwen felt a sting in her heart. She knew her mother was trying to be respectful because their relationship had already changed. She forced a smile anyway and said, "All right, come with me. Dalu, Danyu, Dama, keep up." I almost laughed when I heard their names. It sounded as if the family had named all their children after farm animals. Once they entered one of the spacious rooms, Wang Dalu looked around with wide eyes and asked his sister in disbelief, "Sis, can we really live here from now on?" Compared to the tiny thatched hut they had lived in before, this room was like heaven. It had solid mud walls, plenty of space, beds, tables, and most importantly, the 3 brothers had their own room instead of squeezing together with their parents every night. Jinwen gently rubbed her younger brother's head and smiled. "Dalu, work hard from now on. As long as you do your best, Master will never treat you badly. When you grow up, you'll definitely marry a wonderful wife." Dalu immediately shook his head vigorously. "Sis, I don't want a wife. If I work really hard, can Master give me a nice name like yours instead? Everyone laughs at me because my name is Dalu. I don't like it." Jinwen couldn't help laughing. "All right, work hard, and when the time comes, I'll ask Master to give you a better name." The 2 younger brothers immediately ran over as well. "We want new names too," they shouted excitedly, accidentally saying they wanted new names instead of wives, making everyone burst into laughter. That morning, all three families had arrived carrying every possession they owned. Since they were all poor farming families, there really wasn't much to move. By noon, everyone had already settled into their new rooms. Two large tables were placed in the middle courtyard, and I calmly sat at the head of the main table while the four girls carried dishes back and forth. There were 4 dishes in total, 2 of them containing actual shredded meat, along with bowls of white rice and steamed wheat buns. At the main table, the 4 girls sat on one side while the 3 fathers sat opposite them. Although they shared the same table, the food itself was served separately. After living with me for so long, the girls had grown accustomed to cleanliness and simply couldn't get used to everyone reaching into the same dishes with dirty chopsticks anymore. It wasn't because they looked down on their own fathers, they honestly disliked the filthy feeling that clung to everyone after years of hardship. At the second table, 11 people squeezed together. Standing beside me, Jinyi smiled politely and announced, "Master invited everyone to share this first meal together today. Please don't be shy. Eat as much as you like, but keep an eye on the little ones. Don't let them overeat." Looking at the feast before them, food they couldn't even dream of eating during the new year, everyone secretly swallowed hard. Some of the younger children reached out with their hands only to have their mothers lightly smack them with chopsticks. Jinyi smiled and said, "Don't just stare. Let's eat." Only after she picked up her chopsticks did everyone else finally begin eating. One mother scolded her son while stuffing food into his bowl. "Slow down! Were you a starving ghost in your previous life? You're embarrassing your sister." The second table was even more chaotic. It looked like a battlefield. The mothers couldn't possibly control all the children. Faced with meat, white rice, and steamed buns that they usually only dreamed about, the younger kids completely lost themselves in excitement. Even if their mothers smacked the backs of their hands until they turned red, they still shoved food into their mouths first and worried about everything else later. After everyone finished eating and the tables had been cleared, Jinyi raised her hand. Jingshu immediately placed 3 small cloth pouches on the table. Jinyi explained, "Master knows all of your families are struggling financially, so he's decided to advance part of your wages. Each family will receive 500 copper coins. If you're missing anything, use this money to buy it." The 3 fathers stared at the money pouches in complete disbelief. Their breathing became noticeably heavier. 500 copper coins. They usually had to work an entire year and sell all their grain before ever seeing that much money, yet now it was simply sitting on the table in front of them. Jinyi continued, "This is only an advance. It'll simply be deducted from your future wages. As for salaries, Master and I have already discussed them. We'll hire everyone as workers. Adult men will receive 10 copper coins a day. Women will receive 7. Older children can work too, and their wages will depend on their age. These amounts aren't fixed forever. If someone performs well, their pay can increase at any time. Wages will be paid every 10 days. If you have any questions, you can come to me. Otherwise, everyone may return now. Work officially begins tomorrow." The 3 men looked at one another in shock. 10 copper coins a day meant more than 3 taels of silver a year for each man. Their wives could earn another 2.5 taels. Together, that was already over 5 taels before counting the children. Even wealthy farming families owning 8 or 10 mu of land didn't necessarily earn that much annually. One of the fathers immediately raised his hand. "Miss Jinyi, I have a question." "Go ahead." He excitedly blurted out, "I don't want to rest. My whole family can start working this afternoon." It was Jingyuan's father. For this salary, he was ready to treat his sons Dalu, Danyu, and even little Dama like full-grown workers. Dama was only 4 years old, yet his father already wanted him earning wages. Jinyi glanced toward the little boy, who was still sitting there stuffing steamed buns into his mouth while his mother kept swatting him for eating too fast. After thinking for a moment, she nodded. "All right, 1 copper coin a day for him." Hearing that, I smiled to myself. At first, I had considered simply paying each family 10 copper coins a day and letting them be grateful. But after thinking it over, I realized it was better to establish proper rules from the beginning. People should earn according to the amount of work they contributed. More effort deserved more pay. More work deserved more food. The 3 families totaled 14 people. Once they all passed my system's evaluation period, I'd receive 140 yuan every single day. Their total wages together only came to around 100 copper coins daily, which was basically 10 yuan from my perspective. I was making an incredible profit. Better yet, these families would become living advertisements. After working here for a while, would they really keep all this to themselves? Of course not. They'd naturally tell every uncle, aunt, cousin, and relative they had. Before long, people would be lining up to join us. I smiled and said, "Let's stick with tomorrow. Look at the children. They've eaten so much they can barely move. They won't get any work done today anyway." It's settled. Everyone starts tomorrow. After making the announcement, Jinyi stood up and headed toward the rear courtyard. She noticed the three girls hesitating, clearly wanting to stay with their families a little longer, so she immediately frowned. The three girls instantly straightened up and hurried after her without another word. Once they disappeared, the adults finally relaxed. While the women and children busied themselves unpacking and organizing their new rooms, the three fathers sat together chatting. After spending half a day together, they had already grown much more familiar with one another. Sun Tieju looked at Jingyuan's father and asked, "Brother Wang, I heard you were seriously ill not long ago. Are you feeling better now?" He nodded gratefully. "Much better. Thanks to Dea." "No, thanks to Jingyuan. She brought money home. I've been drinking chicken soup for days and have recovered quite a bit." Before long, the conversation naturally shifted toward their daughters. Every father spoke proudly about his own child while secretly hoping that one day his daughter would become as capable and respected as Miss Jinyi. Meanwhile, in the backyard, I gathered the four girls together again and smiled. "Come on, payday again. From now on, we'll get paid every 10 days, and each payment will still be 100 copper coins. We're skilled workers now, so naturally we'll earn more than ordinary laborers." The girls had no idea what skilled workers meant, but they definitely knew money was a wonderful thing. Since this wasn't the first time I'd paid them, none of them felt shy anymore. Each girl happily picked up her own money pouch. Jinxiu clutched hers tightly with sparkling eyes, already imagining all the things she could buy. Now that her family had moved here and could earn their own living, she no longer needed to secretly support them. She could finally start saving money just for herself. Jingyuan quietly handed her pouch to Jinyi and said, "This is to repay what I borrowed last time." Jinyi accepted it before looking around at everyone. "How about we all pool our money together and buy more cloth? Combined with what we already have left, it should be enough for each of us to make another new outfit. That way we'll have spare clothes to change into. As for the old ones, we can either give them away or keep them for dirty work. Although," she smiled slightly, "I doubt any of us will be doing much dirty work in the future. This afternoon, the workers are going into town to buy supplies. If any of you want anything, we can have them bring cloth back too." The girls' eyes immediately lit up. Without any hesitation, they all contributed their money. Watching them, I couldn't help smiling. "Jinyi, you've changed. You used to be the most frugal person I knew, and now you're actually talking about throwing away old clothes. Very good. I like this version of you. Keep it up." As I watched everyone happily discussing fabrics and clothes, my thoughts drifted back to our next business. Ordinary liquor sold for anywhere between 10 and 30 copper coins per gin, and common people rarely drank it except during the New Year or other special occasions. That was exactly why I was so confident about the opportunity waiting for us. The wealthy landowners and local gentry all preferred settling in Qingyu Town instead of the surrounding villages because of its relative prosperity, and they were exactly the kind of customers who spent money on fine liquor. In the largest room at the back of the middle courtyard, a massive iron still, so wide that 3 people could barely wrap their arms around it together, stood in the corner above a roaring fire. Crystal clear liquor flowed steadily from the spout into waiting jars. Jinxiu's mother worked there alone, calmly feeding firewood into the furnace and switching jars whenever one became full. Compared to the exhausting life she had back home, this work was unbelievably easy. The room was warm from the fire, but with the doors and windows open, it was perfectly bearable. The women from all 3 families took turns working there, each earning 7 copper coins a day. Just then, someone called from outside, "Jinxiu's mother, is everything ready yet?" She answered loudly, "Coming, coming! Why are you rushing me? If you think I'm too slow, then come do it yourself." Jinxiu's father walked in with an awkward smile carrying a bundle of firewood. The other 2 men behind him simply chuckled and silently placed down their own bundles as well. A small gate leading to the backyard opened, and Jinyi walked inside. "Is everything ready?" The smiles immediately disappeared from everyone's faces, and even Jinxiu's mother instantly put away her fiery attitude. She respectfully replied, "Miss Jinyi? Almost. We only need to seal these jars." Jinyi nodded without urging them. The 3 men quickly stepped forward to help. While they worked, she asked, "Can we still keep up with the supply of firewood and raw liquor?" Jinwen's father answered immediately, "The raw liquor isn't a problem yet. Shopkeeper Fang is still supplying enough and has even increased production. But we're definitely running short on firewood. Our families have been cutting wood every day, and we've nearly cleared out all the dead trees nearby." Jinyi nodded thoughtfully. "I understand. It looks like we'll have to start buying firewood. Charcoal is another option, but that would increase our costs too much. I'll discuss it with Master later. For now, let's deliver this batch to town first." There was only one tavern in Qingyu Town that specialized in selling liquor. Ordinary alcohol could be found almost everywhere. So while it was certainly profitable, it wasn't an industry with outrageous profits. At most, it would earn around 100 or 200 taels of silver a year. After bringing my distilled liquor to town, I sat down with Boss Jiang and negotiated a partnership. I explained how exceptional our new liquor, Immortal's Drunken Dream, was, and painted a picture of its future potential. By the end of our discussion, the tavern had practically become part of the Zhao family. After deducting operating expenses, I would receive 70% of the profits. Then I invited the wealthy families of Qingyu Town to taste it for free. The effect was immediate. The reputation of Immortal's Drunken Dream exploded throughout the town overnight. Ordinary liquor sold for 10 copper coins per gin, or 2 copper coins per bowl. My Immortal's Drunken Dream sold for 100 copper coins per gin and 20 copper coins per bowl. Its slogan was simple: even immortals would get drunk after drinking it. Ever since it appeared, the phrase, able to drink 1,000 cups without getting drunk, had practically become history. Producing 1 gin of Immortal's Drunken Dream required 3 gin of ordinary liquor, and after adding firewood, transportation, and other costs, the total production cost was already close to 50 copper coins. In my opinion, the profit margin wasn't especially impressive, but right now, reputation mattered more than money. Earning less at the beginning was perfectly acceptable. Once our name spread far enough, even 100 copper coins per gin would become a thing of the past. If we ever sold it in the imperial capital, charging less than 1 tael of silver per gin would almost feel embarrassing. A horse carriage loaded with liquor jars slowly rolled toward town. A small stool had been placed on the wagon, where Jinyi sat elegantly, reading through her notebook and reviewing the lessons I had taught her the previous day. One man from each of the Sun, Wang, and Li families helped pull or guide the carriage while the other 2 followed behind on foot. When they reached the main street of Qingyu Town, the carriage stopped beneath a large tavern banner. A plump, middle-aged man hurried outside and immediately greeted Jinyi with a broad smile. "Miss Jinyi, welcome!" She smiled politely. "Boss Zhang, you're too kind." 2 young employees walked out of the tavern to unload the liquor. As they passed Jinyi, neither dared lift his head to look directly at her. Only after walking past did they secretly steal a few glances. The 3 fathers noticed everything and quietly exchanged knowing smiles. In another year or 2, Jinyi would reach 15. The age when girls commonly married. But with her intelligence and the obvious affection I had for her, how could ordinary tavern workers ever hope to be worthy of her? At most, they could only admire her from afar. Meanwhile, Jinyi followed Boss Zhang into a private room. A waiter quickly brought several small dishes to accompany the drinks before shopkeeper Fang respectfully handed over the account book. Jinyi carefully flipped through every page while occasionally writing calculations in her own notebook. Both Boss Zhang and shopkeeper Fang looked at her notebook and fountain pen with obvious envy. Such a tiny pen could produce such neat, beautiful writing. It truly was an incredible treasure. Boss Zhang's children were studying, so he had once asked Jinyi how much the notebook and pen cost. She simply smiled and replied, "They're extremely expensive and very rare. Master had to travel a great distance and spend a great deal of effort just to obtain a few for our household. We don't have enough to sell." Honestly, selling notebooks and fountain pens would probably have earned me far more than selling rice ever could. But the risks were far too great. There was no need to expose myself. As long as I stayed patient, everything would come in time. Ever since the liquor business started, I had even stopped selling rice altogether. After all, I had already pushed rice prices in Qingyu Town below 20 copper coins per gin, and refined grain simply wasn't consumed in large enough quantities to justify continuing. As Jinyi reviewed the accounts, she suddenly frowned slightly. "There's a small discrepancy here. Shopkeeper Fang, would you please check this entry?" He immediately picked up the ledger and began working his abacus rapidly. After a few moments, he smiled bitterly. "Miss Jinyi truly has remarkable eyes. You're right, I made a mistake." He admitted it without hesitation. The first time Jinyi had come to inspect the books, shopkeeper Fang had secretly looked down on her. How could a 13-year-old girl possibly discover mistakes made by someone who had managed accounts for half his life? He had even believed that if he wanted to falsify the books, she would never notice. Instead, reality slapped him in the face. With nothing more than her notebook, pen, and calculations, she quickly uncovered several accounting errors. They were all tiny mistakes, of course, because large ones would have been obvious long ago. Ever since that day, shopkeeper Fang had admired her completely. If she hadn't been only 13 years old, he honestly felt he would have knelt down and begged her to become his teacher. After finishing the accounts, Jinyi smiled and said, "Shopkeeper Fang, there's one more matter. Demand for Immortal's Drunken Dream now exceeds our supply. Since production is limited, we have no choice but to raise the price." Boss Zhang blinked. "Raise it to how much?" Jinyi revealed her 2 adorable little tiger teeth as she smiled brightly and raised 2 slender fingers. "The retail price will now be 200 copper coins per gin. The tavern's wholesale price increases by 100 copper coins as well." Boss Zhang sucked in a sharp breath. "It doubled? That's practically robbery. At the moment, we produced around 100 gin every day. Selling it for 200 copper coins per gin meant 20 taels of silver in daily revenue. Of course, not all of that belonged to me. The tavern still had to purchase the liquor for 10 taels first. Fortunately, the profits from selling ordinary liquor easily covered most operating expenses. Boss Zhang still received 30% of the remaining profits, nearly 3 taels a day. At the same time, he owned his own distillery, supplying 300 gin of ordinary liquor every day at 8 copper coins per jin. Although that generated more than 2 taels daily, production costs meant his actual profit was only around half a tael. Even so, calculated over an entire year, supplying ordinary liquor earned him more than 100 taels, while his share of the tavern's profits now exceeded 1,000 taels annually. Compared to the 180 taels he used to earn each year, his income had increased by nearly 10 times. Yet people were never satisfied. Boss Jiang smiled awkwardly and said, "Miss Jinyi, since Immortal's drunken dream is becoming more expensive, perhaps we could discuss the purchase price of the raw liquor." The professional smile on Jinyi's face slowly disappeared before she suddenly smiled even more brightly. "Boss Jiang, what a coincidence. I was just about to discuss something with you. A few days ago, someone came to our residence asking to build a distillery nearby and supply us with raw liquor at a lower price. I had quite an interesting conversation with him." Boss Zhang's face instantly changed. He hurriedly waved both hands. "Miss Jinyi, you've misunderstood. I wasn't asking you to lower the price. I only meant that although my production has increased, I genuinely can't reduce the wholesale price any further. I still have workers to pay." Jinyi blinked, then smiled apologetically. "Then it seems I misunderstood you." Boss Zhang immediately laughed awkwardly and bowed his head. No, it's my fault. I didn't explain myself clearly enough and caused Miss Jinyi to misunderstand." After finishing a few more discussions, Jinyi collected the silver, left the tavern, and rode through town in the carriage to buy the supplies we needed before heading home. The moment she stepped back into the house, the calm and dignified expression she always wore outside disappeared, revealing the cheerful side of the young girl she really was. She pouted slightly and complained, "Master, Boss Jiang has made a fortune from our liquor, yet he's still greedy. I think it's about time we cut him out." I smiled lazily and replied, "You can decide those things yourself. I'll just sit here and applaud whatever you choose." Jinyi nodded happily before opening her notebook. "Master, we're currently delivering 900 jin of liquor every day. Selling it to the tavern brings in 10 taels of silver, and after the tavern sells it, that's another 10 taels. Compared to the profits, our operating costs are almost nothing. The tavern also sells Boss Zhang's ordinary liquor, and although the profits from that aren't very high, they're enough to cover most expenses. Since we receive 70% of the profit, that's 7 taels right there. Our biggest expense is buying raw liquor, and later we'll probably need to purchase firewood too, but the total cost shouldn't exceed 3 taels. That means we're making over 14 taels of silver every single day, which comes to roughly 5,000 taels a year." The moment she finished the calculation, even she was stunned by the number. 5,000 taels a year? She whispered in disbelief. If someone wanted to earn that much by farming, they'd probably need tens of thousands of mu of fertile land. The other 3 girls became just as excited. Jinwen wore her usual silly grin and asked, "Does that mean we can eat whatever we want now? Big fish, roasted meat, roast chicken, roast goose." I could practically see the picture forming in her head again, with her sitting in the middle of countless tables piled high with delicious food. Even Jinyi couldn't help imagining it for a brief moment before quickly regaining her composure. "It's fine to dream a little," she said seriously, "but don't forget that wealth shouldn't be shown off. We don't want anyone setting their sights on us." She then looked back at me and added, "Master, I don't feel comfortable leaving the raw liquor business in Boss Jiang's hands anymore. I think we should brew it ourselves. The profits might be a little lower, but I'll have peace of mind." I did some calculations. If we build our own distillery capable of producing 500 gin of raw liquor every day, we'll need around a dozen workers. The moment I heard the words "need workers," my eyes immediately lit up. Only a dozen? Why not hire more so nobody has to work too hard? We aren't short of money. Jinyi thought for a moment before nodding. Then let's make it 20 people. 10 families, 10 men, and 10 women should be about right. I grinned. Perfect. Do it as quickly as possible. Let Boss Zhang learn what happens when he underestimates a determined young woman. Jinyi couldn't help blushing. "Master," the 4 girls immediately got to work planning everything. Where the distillery should be built, how large it needed to be, what materials were required, what brewing equipment we needed, how many large fermentation barrels we'd have to prepare. Every detail was discussed one after another. In the end, Jinyi suggested, "Actually, why don't we just buy Boss Zhang's distillery? We could purchase the buildings, equipment, and even the workers together." I only made one suggestion. Earlier, I had already paid the system to create a complete development plan for the entire area, so I wanted every future building to remain inside that planned layout. I didn't want anything ruining the appearance of our future city. I also spent another 10 yuan through the system to purchase an excellent small distillery blueprint, then carefully copied the design onto paper for the girls. They became even more motivated after seeing it. The moment our meeting ended, everyone immediately split up to begin working. Jinyi sent someone with a carriage to negotiate with Boss Jiang. Jingxu went to invite Boss Wang, the builder, to construct the new factory. Jinwen and Jingyuan went to negotiate grain supplies with several merchants. Meanwhile, I, the so-called master of the house, ended up lying comfortably at home doing absolutely nothing. Somehow these girls had become so capable that I, their master, barely had anything left to do. I couldn't help laughing at myself. It really was a case of enjoying all the benefits while still pretending to complain. Fortunately, everything progressed smoothly. Boss Wang personally came over with his workers before construction officially began. Building the factory wasn't complicated. It was basically a large rectangular courtyard surrounded by high walls to prevent future thieves from sneaking inside. Earthen walls divided the interior into different work areas. Storage rooms for grain and liquor barrels only needed simple roofs for now. The workers' dormitories were a little more troublesome to build, but not by much. We simply followed the same construction standards we had already used for Zhao residents. In just 7 or 8 days, the entire factory was finished. As for Boss Zhang, he tearfully chose to sell us his small distillery in order to keep the much more valuable tavern partnership alive. He didn't really have another choice. Once our own distillery began operating, his would become completely worthless anyway. His ordinary liquor could only be sold around Qingniu town, and most of it had already been purchased by us as raw material. Unlike Immortal's Drunken Dream, nobody fought over his products anymore. Qingniu town itself could never consume 100 jin of Immortal's Drunken Dream every day. But my marketing strategy worked perfectly. Rumors spread everywhere that our liquor was so delicious because it contained mysterious secret ingredients that might disappear forever if production ever stopped. As a result, many wealthy drinkers no longer bought just 1 jin to drink. They bought 10 jin to store away for the future. After the latest price increase, sales actually became even more explosive. People began believing the liquor wasn't just enjoyable to drink, it was also an investment. Even many people who rarely drank alcohol rushed to buy it. Markets had always been strange like that. Before all this, my household only had 19 people, giving me a steady system subsidy of 190 yuan every day, equivalent to roughly 1,900 copper coins, or nearly 2 taels of silver. But now the liquor business alone earned more than 10 taels daily, so I barely touched the subsidy money anymore and simply let it accumulate. At the new distillery, several families from Boss Zhang's former business came to work for us, and Jinyi also recruited more struggling families from nearby villages. Before long, we had added another 10 households. Including all the children, our population reached 53 people. Once they all finished their probation period, my daily system subsidy would jump to 720 yuan, finally exceeding the salary I had earned before being transported to this world. One day I said to Jinyi, I still think ordinary people should rely on farmland. Spend more time recruiting workers to reclaim wasteland. We need to grow as much grain as possible. She clearly couldn't understand why I was still obsessed with farming when we were already making so much money every day. But as always, she trusted me without question. All right, master, I'll continue recruiting people to cultivate more land. I nodded with satisfaction before adding, now that we've become wealthy, we also have responsibilities. Ordinary people are suffering. Don't just recruit able-bodied men. If there are elderly people, children, widows, monks, nuns, or even disabled people willing to come, accept them too. As long as they're willing to work, I want them to have enough food to survive. That's called social responsibility. Do you understand? Jinyi smiled helplessly. Yes, master. I understand. I smiled to myself. In reality, I didn't care who they were. As long as they were living people, each one meant another 10 yuan of daily subsidy from my system. Before long, rumors spread throughout Qingniu town. Have you heard? That scoundrel who came here a few months ago is causing trouble again. Scoundrel? Which one? There aren't that many in Qingniu town. Who else? I'm talking about the biggest one, Master Zhao, the grain merchant. Besides selling that Immortal's Drunken Dream, what has he done now? Apparently he's gone crazy. He made a little money and now thinks he's something special. They're saying he's recruiting people everywhere to reclaim wasteland. Supposedly, if you work hard enough, you can earn 10 copper coins a day. 10 copper coins a day? That's nearly 1 tael of silver every 3 months. I don't believe it. Neither do I. The speaker burst into laughter, but there are plenty of fools who actually do.